What is up? I'm Will. This is Rennthusiast, my YouTube channel about Porsche ownership, and in today's video I'm going to share with you how to find and buy your holy grail Porsche. So what I'm going to do in this video is take you through the story of me finding my new to me 1986 911 Carrera in Meteor Gray Metallic. It is indeed a holy grail car for me. I'm going to take you through the story, and throughout the story I'm going to give you guys some tips, some best practices, some things that I've tripped over that have really worked for me. Over the years, I've bought and sold a number of Porsches. I've had some air-cooled 911s, some water-cooled stuff, and I've had some successes in buying really good cars, and I've also made some mistakes that ended up being very costly, very painful. And so I feel like with me finding this 86, this Meteor Gray car, I was able to really distill a lot of the lessons learned into what I'll call almost like the gold standard for attaining that dream Porsche. I'm gonna give you a little bit of backstory, and then I'm gonna jump into kind of the process I followed and the process maybe you could follow if you are indeed chasing your first Porsche or maybe your next Porsche. Several months back, I was at a friend of mine's garage, a guy by the name of Patrick Petkowski. He owns a company called the Patina Group. I was at his garage shooting an owner interview about his 912. Patrick represents sellers on Bring a Trailer, and so whenever I go over there, he generally has some pretty cool cars sitting in his garage. And so I'm there, I'm shooting the 912 owner interview video, we wrap up, and I look over in the corner and I see this gorgeous gray G-body. I don't know why I missed it before, like I didn't see it during the shooting, but at the end there, I wandered over there and I started to look at the car, and I'm like, man, tell me a little bit about this car, Patrick. He said, well, guy in Texas is wanting me to sell it on Bring a Trailer. I haven't really started to take it through my process. I really don't know a lot about the car. It is an 86, it is a Carrera with the 915 gearbox, and I'm like, whoa, stop, this is my favorite year. My first Carrera, my first G-body, I should say, that I ever owned was an 86. It was a Guards red car, which I never really liked the color of the car. I kept the car for a couple of years, though. I had a lot of good times in it, so I knew that I really enjoy a G-body Carrera. So when he told me that it was an 86, man, I was stoked up. I asked him what he thought the seller wanted for the car. Price was a little bit high, but I was intrigued. Even though I wasn't in the market, I was intrigued to learn more. So this brings me to kind of my first tip for you guys, and something that happened to me in this scenario. I found a way to be amongst a number of cars and find something that really wasn't for sale yet, but one that was a really at least promising car. I have scoured many Porsche listings over the years looking for cool cars, and generally when you see a cool listing on the PCA classifieds or in a Facebook group, that car has a lot of competition for it and it flies off the shelves. When you find an off-market car like this 86, it really lessens the pressure on you to hurry up and make a hasty decision, or maybe make a mistake and buy a car that has problems, or at least some things that you aren't aware of that may end up being more expensive than you think once the car arrived. In the case of my finding this 86, over the years I've built a network in the Porsche community. Now, in fairness, in my case, having this YouTube channel certainly has increased my exposure and has opened up a lot of doors for me in terms of meeting people in the community. And so I have developed a network. You know, if you were looking for a cool car, if you were looking for your holy grail Porsche, the precise spec or generation that you're looking for, I would say you need to put yourself in a place where the right car might find you, where you can trip over something off market. And so in a way, I feel like this car found me because I put myself in a position to be around cool Porsches that may not be on the market. Join PCA, start hanging out with some other owners. You very well might find the right car for you. Put the word out, tell people what you're looking for. Sellers who are off market but getting ready to be on market, in my experience, they are kind of relieved to find somebody who can help them avoid the whole marketing and dealing with buyers and dealing with people that don't have the money and all that kind of stuff. What I also liked about the process with this 86 around the concept of no pressure, like the first thing that I asked Patrick after I gave it a little bit of thought, I went home and just kind of gave it some thought, slept on it, reached back out to him. I said, look, man, I think that the number on this car is a little bit aggressive. If that seller that you're representing is negotiable at all, I'd love to ask him if he'd be open to a mechanical pre-purchase inspection. So Patrick reached out to the seller, said, hey, look, are you cool with him doing a pre-purchase inspection? And this would be a fairly intensive pre-purchase inspection. I'll get into like kind of the items we covered off in that pre-purchase inspection, but I asked him to relay to the seller that, you know, in this PPI, I would really want to be very meticulous with the car. Thankfully, the seller was cool with it, and I got good vibes from that because there was no like hesitation, there was no stories shared with me. It was just, yeah, feel free to let him come on out and do whatever he wants to do. He can take it to a mechanic. In the case of this 86 though, the car is about an hour from me. The Patina Group has a shop out in you know, further southern North Carolina, and because it was only an hour, I decided to ask my mechanic, the gentleman I've used for several years on my air-cooled cars, if he'd be willing to travel with me to the shop. So there's a couple of subtleties here that I want to give you some food for thought, like some tips or at least some items for consideration. So obviously, if the mechanic's unknown and if you can get this mechanic to look at the car you're evaluating, like that's a huge win. Hopefully you have some trust in this individual. Hopefully you understand like the working relationship between the two of them. Hopefully this person knows what kind of things keep you up at night with these cars. And so in my case, having this guy go out and look at the car with me was a huge like builder of peace of mind. I have really, how do I say this? Over the course of my ownership experience, I've bought some cars that maybe were not as clean as they were represented. I have done a couple of PPIs at a distance. I've bought cars remotely, and the sellers recommended shops to do the PPIs that perhaps didn't necessarily represent my best interests because the car showed up with significant problems. When we went on site to take a look at this 86, my mechanic brought with him a ton of tools, and we spent 4 hours going over the car. We did compression and leak down test. We went through everything. He tested every system on the car. We even drained the gear oil. I have had problems with gearboxes having metal shavings in them, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any surprises there. So is that overkill? Perhaps, but I don't know, man. I've learned the lesson the hard way. So the punchline on this is taking your mechanic with you to look at the car. It worked for me, and I also knew what kind of repairs the car needed. Another like kind of nuance to all this is when you take your own mechanic, that mechanic stands to make money on the repairs, whereas some independent mechanic that is just doing a PPI may not be as motivated to look at everything because there's no work on the back end. So that's just another bit of food for thought. With regards to like my story on this 86 and what I'm getting ready to share with you, this was insane luck, and I don't know if you could replicate this, but as the PPI was unfolding, I pulled the documentation and I started to look at it, and I realized that one of the previous owners was an acquaintance of mine. It was absolutely insane, and I had seen with my two eyes in 997 that he had also owned, and the car was meticulous. So when I knew that he had owned this 86, man, I was just like, this is crazy. Not only that, but I saw that the car had been represented by an acquaintance of mine too, or a friend of mine, I should say, and I was able to call him and get the story on the car. So as you're going through your due diligence process, dig into the paperwork. I would say this, even email a previous owner. You're gonna find the email address in the paperwork if there are any records from a shop. The worst that can happen is they don't even respond or they say no to you, but generally in my experience, previous owners are usually pretty forthcoming. They're excited to connect with somebody who's looking at buying the next car. So here's the tip, go through the paperwork, see if there's any common connections, or at a bare minimum, reach out to a previous owner and just see what they have to say. In my case, man, it was huge. It gave me more peace of mind about the car. All right, so I decided to buy the car. I ended up negotiating a deal. I got a little bit of money off. There were a couple really killer surprises about the car. There's an insane, I'm looking at it right here, it's parked. There's an insane stereo system in the car, which was a huge bonus, not cheap, a Macintosh system. So anyway, I put a deal together on the car. I brought it home, And you know, if you're new to air-cooled, you need to go into this with your eyes wide open. There's gonna be some items that the car needs, there's no doubt. And just don't be surprised. I mean, you're not gonna be able to mitigate all risk with this, but with the right mindset, you're still gonna be cool with it, because this will be, like, the pros will far outweigh the cons if this is indeed a Porsche that you're dying to buy. And so what I'm saying to you here is definitely go into your ownership experience with eyes wide open. Maybe there's gonna be some expensive surprises, but be pleasantly surprised if there aren't. All right, the last kind of thing that I'm going to share with you, and it's a trap that I almost fell in, falling into the rapid mod trap. And so I got this car home, and I don't know why I did this. I started to say, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. Because of my previous ownership with the 86, I knew some of the performance mods I wanted to do because it enhanced the experience of that car. So I did start going down that path with my new 86. And you know, I did things like I swapped the shifter kit. I also ordered up some Recaro seats, and then all of a sudden, man, I hit the brakes. I ended up putting the shifter back to stock. It's a 915, so it is a little bit vague, but I just have come to love that experience. I shouldn't have done the short shift kit, so I wasted a little money there. I was gonna put the Recaro experts into the car because I enjoyed them in the previous 86, and I ended up not swapping them out. The current seats are so nice that I ended up selling those Recaros to somebody in the community, and so they're gone. So that's my story on this 86. I love the car. It's a keeper. I know some of you out there are gonna give me grief because I have had car ADD and I have sold everything I bought, but I am very happy with my garage. I don't see anything getting sold for a while. I'll do a video on that, how I've landed on what I'll call the perfect garage. I will be reviewing this 86 for you, so if you're new to like G-body Carreras, I'll give you a full ownership, I should say a full driving review, and maybe that'll be helpful to you. I will catch you guys next time. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. I'm out of here.